Hi, I'm Greg Ellis, actor, author, director, and owner and founder of Monkey Toes Studio, the Voices in My Head podcast series.
So, Greg, how did you get into voice acting in particular?
So I'd say it was about 18, maybe 20 years ago. I was in Hollywood doing movies and television, and my manager at the time said to me, "Oh, you should do voiceover. Have you ever done voiceover?" And I said, "What's that?" And I learned about the fun and the joys of being behind a microphone and not just in front of a camera. And this wonderful community of, particularly in animation and cartoons and video games, of voice actors, and the fun that can be had with them playing with the vocal cords.
Do you treat any project differently in terms of approach for your craft, whether it's a video game, a cartoon, a theater, or film or television?
Yeah, over the years, I've been asked a few times to kind of share my experience as an artist and how I approach the art. And so you can find on my website, I call it Alive Coaching, and it's the ABCs of the core of Alive Coaching, which is A is art in flow, how we let go and let the imagination effortlessly take over. B is the business of show, and C is the craft in process. And everyone's process is different, and how we can learn from other artists of how to improve our process as we approach the craft and learn. We're always learning. I'm always learning as an artist. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know to how to be a better artist.
So talk a little bit about your podcast and when you guys talk about, talk a little bit like when you guys, share that and what you guys talk about on the show, that kind of stuff, and how it came about.
Yeah, so the Voices in My Head, I started the Voices in My Head to really pay homage and honor some of the icons and legends of the voiceover world in animation, cartoon, and video games. And it was sit-down conversation. The first one I started with Andrea Romano, who will be on the Voices in My Head live animation jamboree fundraiser tomorrow. And we sat and talked, and she has an amazing career. She directed many of the cartoons I grew up watching, and she's won 8 Emmys and the Annie Lifetime Achievement Award. And we talked for about 3 hours and 45 minutes. And I realized at that point that I probably should break it up into a three-part series opening of episodes. So I went from her to Steve Bloom, the Guinness World Record holder, and Rob Paulson, the voice of Pinky. Jan Hale, has a luminous career in video games and cartoon and animation. And then Clancy Brown and D. Bradley Baker. D is his non-human creature sounds. His episode is like a masterclass. A wonderful fellow. So they just grew into this ongoing organic series of podcast interviews, and then I took it to video podcast. So there's a podcast and videos from episode 14 onwards, so 14, 15, and 16. And now we're launching this event as a kind of virtual Comic-Con to bring together not just the great casting directors and voice directors like Andrea and Colette Sunderman, who's going to be on the event tomorrow, and Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who's not only just a casting director, she is also a voice actor in her own right, to the game makers and the showrunners and the show creators. Eric Rogers, showrunner of Skylanders Academy and Futurama, and we have Professor Phil Campbell, who is a game architect. He teaches at Berkeley, and his career is luminous as well. He worked developing such games like The Godfather and James Bond series and Lara Croft. He's going to be on the first hour at 12 o'clock with Clancy and I, which is the Respondent Gamers Gateway. And that we created the Gamers Gateway because there was I'd say about a month ago, I tweeted, I saw Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who is a wonderful woman. She had tweeted her support of J.K. Rowling, and I'm a bit ignorant with Twitter. I don't use it too well. I sometimes use the wrong hashtag. Instead, I think every life has value. And I guess if my matters hashtag was something, it would be family matters, because I believe in tending to the familial bonds of our humane race, our big collective community. And So Ayan, who she grew up in a very oppressive Islamic state, and she had forced genital mutilation. She escaped. It was forced on her. She escaped and got to Holland. She got political asylum, and she worked as a janitor, and then worked her way up to become a member of parliament. Now she has the AHA Foundation, and she had tweeted support of J.K. Rowling, and J.K. had been tweeting these wonderful illustrations of young children, boys and girls, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and naming them and telling, building confidence. And I thought that was marvelous. So impressed by that. These two, women who'd earned great privilege. They worked hard to earn the privilege that they have, and champion these young artists. And then Clancy retweeted, Clancy Brown, who's the voice of Mr. Krabs, and you probably know him from such movies as Shawshank Redemption. He was Captain Hadley in that, and various other movie and TV shows. He retweeted me, and then suddenly we got targeted and trolled by a few outraged video game fans, even a small, loud minority of our own fan bases. There was a couple of disgruntled fans who even started petitions to present to BioWare and EA Games, the makers of Dragon Age, which I play the voice of Colin Rutherford on, demanding I never be employed on their games again. And so we were somewhat perplexed. We understand the nature of cancel culture and identity politics, and rather than pushing back and being negative, we decided to create the Respondent Gamers Gateway event to discuss in a more positive way the situation productively, as well as to talk about the intersection of the real world and virtual reality worlds, and maybe learn something from the younger generations that didn't grow up like we did on stand-up games like Pac-Man and Defender and Asteroids. And the reason why it ties in with the Respondent is because that's my passion project. Over the last year, I set out on a journey to explore the condition of the male experience. I am a man. I was a boy. It's not sexist or genderist of me to approach it from that lens. I set out, it's a bi-weekly whodunit really, just a multimedia conversation on positive masculinity, a bi-weekly whodunit in which I, as I guess both lead detective and key perpetrator, work to track down the co-conspirators of men's demise and the secrets to our reclamation. It's also an exploration of how becoming, if you will, a modern man today demands we reimagine masculinity, rethink fatherhood, and revitalize our image of family. I think in this era of cancel culture and smash the patriarchy and all men bad, we should champion and empower our younger generations of boys and girls. The answer is not to say toxic femininity and smash the matriarchy. We need to move from hateful to grateful. So that event is really just the kind of social impact conversation at 12 o'clock. And it's a precursor to the main event, the Voices in My Head Animation Jamboree fundraiser, which, was inspired by the podcast series, The Voices in My Head, the long-form conversation with some of your favorite artists, showrunners, directors from the cartoon, animation, and video game worlds. And it's a virtual Comic-Con, I guess. Given the nature of what's gone on recently with COVID and the pandemic, or the panic-demic, as I sometimes call it, and how the social messaging we're getting from governments and states and legislatures, which I think is fundamentally flawed. We should not be socially distancing at all. That's the worst thing and the last thing we should be doing. We should be physically distancing and socially connected. We are human beings, we're sentient creatures. We come together in groups and we form relationships interpersonal, whether it's family of origin, whether it's employers and workspace, and how we can change that message to kind of be socially inclusive as well. Every life does matter, and we are all individuals, part of the bigger collective. I think that's part of the bigger conversation in terms of the respondent, whether it's individual or group. So the Respondent Gamers Gateway is free for everyone to attend, and the Voices in My Head Animation Jamboree fundraiser is $5, with all proceeds donated to Ayan Hirsch Ellis, the AHA Foundation. It just seemed natural to support Ayan. Given the Twitter support which became such an issue, because her journey and her story is the epitome of courage and bravery against all the odds. She escaped, as I said, she escaped an Islamic state, an oppressive Islamic state, having had forced genital mutilation, found a way to Holland, became a janitor, then a member of the Dutch Parliament. Her story is so inspirational. and her philanthropic giving back to women in a similar position that she fought herself out of is truly inspiring and advocational. So that's really how this came about, so fast, so quick. And, it's a reunion of sorts as well, Greg, of a wonderful community of voiceover actors and artists and writers and showrunners and game designers and makers and players. And it's such a wonderful community of people. And we're hoping that this first event can parlay into more events. We have other events planned and bringing on some extremely exciting people that the fans have maybe not had access to before. Some of the owners and founders of some of the biggest video game companies and the corporate people within some of the biggest studios and networks that have asked to be a part of this. So hopefully we can parlay into something bigger.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important, especially for people who have a lot of reach and popularity, to try to do something positive with that, and bring things to light and educate people. I think it's one of the things a lot of people don't do for some reason, either because they're scared to toe the line or they don't want to come out and have an opinion about something, and then that comes into the cancel culture thing. Maybe that hasn't played, but it's really cool to see you and these other actors try to do something with your fame, like do something positive for the world, not just lend just your voice, but lend just your voice in other ways and make people aware of what's happening around them in the world.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of cancel. We should cancel culture, and the only way to cancel culture is to call it cancel couture. And the emperor, the clothes are off, the emperor's clothes, and no one's buying anymore. We can kind of see it, and the only way we can do that is to speak up. Look, if fans want to go after me and write petitions and be outraged at their interpretation of my supporting two incredibly smart, brave, talented women, for whatever reason, then that is their prerogative. Clancy and I are coming together to say, look, we respect and hear you, and we are not angry or upset. We want to include you. We want to live the inclusivity of the message and say, let's all come together. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a civil discourse. Let's agree to disagree. Let's temper this age of unreason and thaw out the ice age of the conversation, and how social media can be so antisocial. Sometimes I call it antisocial media. And let's stop looking down through our eyes at the phone and look up and see each other and exercise from the neck up and tend to that mental health and talk about the suicide rates and talk about men's mental health and young boys and the decline into drugs and the education and how we're letting boys down there, and prison reform, and all of these specific siloed issues that we can maybe discuss in a way that doesn't cancel anyone. We can agree to disagree. When I did the first episode of The Respondent, Stephen Fry was my guest, and we talked about how identify and label and call yourself whatever you want. I will do the same, and I respect that, and hopefully you respect that back. It's how we treat each other that really matters. That's what really matters. Identity politics will eventually devour itself. You cannot win the oppression Olympics. We cannot be in a place where we're being told that we do not exist, we do not belong, we are not part of the conversation, merely based on whatever religion we are, whatever spirituality we choose to follow, whatever ethnicity we are, whatever group we deem to be a part of, or however we want to label ourselves. We have to rid ourselves of the speech police and the thought crimes and the perceived thought crimes, and focus on moving from hateful to grateful.
Now, one of the things I just want to mention, I know we're kind of short on time, but I want to mention you've been voice acting for over 20 years, and in that time, social media has come up, and obviously it's a thing now. But you used to have a sense, especially voice actors, had a sense of anonymity, like when they were out in public, people didn't really recognize you, But I know that big actors now, like Troy Baker, Kevin Conroy, they're being now recognized in public places where you didn't used to have that. And what's it been like seeing that transition of people recognizing you for your voice work, particularly in public now?
Well, recently and not so much because I haven't been out in public too
Right,
much.
COVID. Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and also, I don't really watch too much TV, and the social media that I dive into is more of a, I guess, more outside the mainstream. A few years ago, I decided to look outside the mainstream, and the social media, big social media companies, and try to evolve my sense of what was truly going on in the world. I just recorded the Dark Horse podcast with Brett Weinstein, and he's a guest as well on The Respondent on August 16th. I think it airs at 1 o'clock Pacific time, and he's just started the Articles of Unity, and beautiful evolutionary biologist. And he and his wife Heather Haying were cancelled at Evergreen State College a few years ago, and he's actually speaking up and doing something, really getting involved. So in terms of being noticed, look, I whatever celebrity I might have with a miniature C. I was talking with Rob Paulson this morning. We were both doing a breakfast TV show live on Zoom, and he talked about the small C he has. I'm the miniature C. It's really now just purpose towards giving back and doing projects that can have positive advocational empowerment, and sometimes it's serious subjects, and we can maybe have some serious play, and move towards improving to a minuscule degree, moving the needle maybe somewhat on the emotional barometer to a place of saying, look, let's join in the conversation. Conversing is a good thing. Listening is a good thing. And I'm open to be proved wrong, to have my opinion changed. I'm always leaving a little room for doubt and nuance and uncertainty. And there are so many people that are so sure of themselves these days. And it's great to be confident. But also, courage, like Brene Brown said, is vulnerability is courage personified. So how we can be a little bit more vulnerable. And I think that by doing this event, particularly the Respondent Gamers Gateway, I've left myself extremely vulnerable. To tweet my support of two amazing women has left me extremely vulnerable because I'm not fully aware of the implications of that. And, if people want to cancel me from video games and voiceover, then, I'm not okay with it, but I'm not going to be upset with people about it. They're going to do what they're going to do. And it makes me sad, really, that we live in a society where so many people feel the need to eviscerate people and make people extinct and cancel them. And the value of human life, so many times I've seen someone's life will be lost, or a young man will take his life, or a young girl, or a father, and the response is, so what, they deserved it. Well, really? Is that where we've got to? Where we're championing people losing their lives? No, I don't want to live in a world like that, so I'm going to talk about that. And I'm going to address it, and I'm going to hopefully change a few hearts and minds where that's concerned. And I think as well what's important, as part of the older generation, I think I'm probably Generation X, it's not enough to do what my parents and grandparents did and say, oh, the younger generation today, they didn't know they were born, look at how we're responsible. I'm responsible. We as a collective bore the younger generations, and sometimes we bore them. And we should be shepherds and guides and mentors, and also listen to the younger shepherds and guides and mentors. We're all in this together. So I'm super excited about tomorrow. I'm really grateful that we've had the time to talk about it, and thank you.